League One is going to be interesting this weekend as only a few teams take to the field. It is the international break for the majority of the leagues, and that is why basically every team in the division apart from 6 will not be playing this weekend. That means those games will be moved to midweek fixtures. But should we take a quick look into what games are going on in League One this season, and then take a little bit of a look into the league table and how things are shaping up heading into round 5. So let's just take a quick look at the games that have been postponed and the games that are still on. So starting off with Burton Albion Crawley, that's been postponed. You've then got Exeter City Birmingham, Huddersfield Blackpool, Leyton Orient Peterborough, Lincoln City Northampton, Wigan Stevenage, and Wycombe Wanderers Mansfield Town have all been postponed. Wrexham will face Shrewsbury Town at home, Charlton will face Rotherham United at home, and Barnsley will face Bristol Rovers. Now, before we get into all of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content that's going to be coming your way across the course of this upcoming campaign. Of course, there's no Championship football, so make sure to stay tuned for any Championship videos that are going to be dropping over the course of the next week. There's obviously a lot to talk about going on in the Championship, so make sure you've got that subscribe button clicked and the notification bell on. Now, let's start off with Barnsley versus Bristol Rovers in what is going to be a very, very interesting game. Barnsley have finally picked up some form. They've picked up a 3-0 win against Crawley Town in their previous game. Bristol Rovers also came away victors, beating Cambridge United 2-0. Now, if we look at all the results of their previous 5, both teams have sort of been in a bit of indifferent form. Barnsley have beat Lincoln City, Sheffield United and Crawley Town, but they've drew to Northampton and lost that EFL trophy tie to Manchester United's under-21s. Now, you look over at Bristol Rovers and they lost to Cardiff City, obviously in the Cup, and then drew with Rotherham United and Tottenham Hotspur's Academy, as well as losing to Stockport the game after, but then they obviously found their way to winning ways against Cambridge. Now, looking ahead to this game, I think it is going to be a very, very interesting one at Oakwell. It is on Sky Sports Plus, so if you're looking for your EFL football fix, make sure you're there at 3 o'clock on Saturday. It's going to be really interesting, this one. I think Barnsley might finally be finding their way under their new management and with their new sort of group of players, and that's going to be really, really interesting to see. Now, obviously, both of these sides have some really, really good players. You look at the likes of Bristol Rovers, they've got Chris Martin, Omachere, if that's how you say his name. I'm pretty sure I always butcher that one. You've obviously got Barnsley, you've got the likes of Adam Phillips, you've got Conor Horahan in there, you've got Donovan Pines. Like, they have a group of fairly decent players who can perform well in this division, and it is going to be really interesting to see how this game goes on. Now, if we do just take a quick look at the head-to-head of both sides, and you look at the previous results, and obviously Barnsley come out on top in the majority. 3 wins for Barnsley, 1 win for Bristol Rovers and 2 draws in total. And obviously, as you can see there, Barnsley 3-0 back in 2022, 2-1 back in January. The other 2 games played at Bristol Rovers were draws, but obviously this one is at Oakwell, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out. Again on Sky Sports Plus, Charlton Athletic face Rotherham United. It's going to be a really interesting one. Charlton Athletic have obviously picked up their first defeat of the league campaign this season, with Reading coming and taking all 3 points in what was a really, really good Reading performance. Now, it started off Nathan Jones's era with a defeat to Reading, and it's hit another defeat to Reading, so it's going to be really interesting to see how they sort of move forward from this. Obviously, Rotherham United have sort of, I don't know if struggled's the right word, but they've not found their feet yet since being relegated from the Championship under the management of Steve Evans, and it is going to be really interesting to see if they can now build on that 2-1 win versus Huddersfield. Now, I know a lot of teams have played in the EFL Trophy. I don't know if their results will show up, but I think it's very interesting looking into these games, because you look at the opportunity that they have in these games to put points on the board where other teams aren't playing. And I used to be of the idea that having games in hand is better than points on the board, but then last season, I was obsessed with the fact we had points on the board versus the likes of Bolton and Peterborough. Peterborough at one point, I think, had 5 games in hand on us, which is 15 points, and we was only 8 points ahead or something like that. And they could have quite easily caught us up. But because they had to play so many Saturday midweek, Saturday midweek, Saturday midweek, it then cost them later down the line. And obviously, these games that have been postponed for internationals will have to move to another day. It'll most likely be a midweek day. So these are things that both of these two sides are going to have to sort of think of, because they're going to have an extra game to put points on the board right now, which another team is then going to have to catch up later down the line. Now, Rotherham are already a little bit further down the league than they probably wanted to be. And if you do look at the past 5 fixtures for both of these sides, you look at Charlton Athletic, the only losses coming to Birmingham, which I believe was a cup game, and Reading in the league. And then they've won every other game, I do believe. Obviously, the 1-0 win to Wigan, 1-0 to 1-0 versus Leyton Orient, and 2-0 versus Bolton Wanderers. You then look over to Rotherham United, and it's a draw to Bristol Rovers. It's a 2-0 win to versus Mansfield, which I believe was a cup game. It's then a 2-0 loss to Wickham, 2-1 to Fleetwood, which was a cup game, and then a 2-1 win versus Huddersfield. Now, I'm really intrigued to see if Steve Evans can take this team on a run now, because this Rotherham team is not a League One squad. It's a really, well, it is a League One squad, but it's a proper top-end League One squad, and it is going to be really interesting to see how they sort of develop over the course of the season. They've not quite hit their stride yet, but when you've got players like Johnson Clark-Harris, Malik Wilkes in your squad, like, at this level, you should be able to put the ball in the back of the net, and hopefully that's what we're going to see from Rotherham United going forward. Now, obviously Nathan Jones will be aiming to stop that, but on 3 o'clock on Saturday on Sky Sports Plus, we'll be able to find out which team will come out on top. And the final game of the League One weekend, so this video is going to be quite a short one, is Wrexham versus Shrewsbury Town on Sky Sports Plus. It's the final game of the weekend. It's one of the only ones which has not been postponed. And I have to say, I'm really, really impressed with Wrexham. I knew they'd come in with an incredible budget. I knew they'd come in with the opportunity to bring in incredible players because of the situation that they have, the Hollywood style that they have down there. And it's not necessarily been Hollywood football. It's been very impressive football where it's been percentage based. And that's something which Derby County got promoted doing. And I've had a few people in the comments say that they think Wrexham will finish higher than Birmingham City. Now, I think that's a little bit of a reach. I'm not quite sure if that will be the case, but I certainly think Wrexham are going to have a very, very good season. And I think some of my predictions are going to be proved massively wrong because some teams have massively shocked me to start off this campaign. And it's very interesting to see a team like Wrexham, who I think have only dropped 2 points in the league, and that was versus Bolton Wanderers. And this is really interesting. And you look at Shrewsbury, lost 4 on the bounce before beating Leyton Orient 3-0. And it's one of those for me where I just can't see past a Wrexham win. I think Wrexham have so much quality. They've got the likes of Jack Marriott, George Evans. I think they've got Steve Fletcher still about. Obviously, Paul Mullen. Obviously, he's been injured. I think he returned in the previous game, if I remember rightly. And it's one of those where they've had basically League One budgets since they were in the National League. And I'm not saying they've spent League One money since the National League, but they've had the capacity to. And obviously, last season, they showed just what they were capable of by getting straight out of League Two at the first time of asking. And I do think that Wrexham could potentially be in this promotion fight. I've said it a few times already this season, but I do think that there's probably 12 teams going to be in this battle for promotion this season in League One. And a couple of the teams aren't quite performing to the level I expected. The teams like Bolton Wanderers haven't quite hit their stride yet. Peterborough are sort of hit and miss at the moment. And obviously you see that by Wrexham's last result where they beat them 2-0. You then obviously look at your likes of Barnsley, haven't quite been at the races yet. And it seems like it's the the newer teams that are sort of taking the lead, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out across the course of an entire season, because right now, yes, we're only heading into round 5, so there's a long way to go. A lot can change. I think at this point last year, I think Exeter City, Port Vale, Burton Albion were all above Derby County. They all finished near the in the bottom half, and Port Vale ended up getting relegated. Burton Albion just survived, and it's interesting when I look back at like Derby season last year. At this point, I was stressed because we were bad. We were so bad, and then we just flipped the script and ended up in a really good position. Now, obviously, the previous 5 results for both these two sides is quite interesting. Wrexham have won 3, drew 1 and lost 1, which was to Sheffield United in the Cup, whereas Shrewsbury Town have lost 4 in a row, including a game to Fulham's under-21s, and the only win they've taken in that 5 is Shrewsbury Town, which was Leyton Orient, in the last one. It's going to be very interesting to see if Shrewsbury Town can continue that form. I'm really intrigued to see what they do. Now, we're just going to take a quick look at the league table, as you can see on your screen right now, and I have to say I'm blown away by the positions. Stockport County at the top, 3 wins, 1 draw, 7 goal difference. Wrexham, 3 wins, 1 draw, 6 goal difference. Birmingham, 3 wins, 1 draw, 3 goal difference. I think those 3 teams have been really impressive. I've said it before about Birmingham City. I think they should win the league at a canter, especially when you look at their recent signing of Jay Stanisfield. I think that's a humongous signing, and it's a massive deal in League One terms. I think it's 20 million it could rise to, which is ridiculous in the grand scheme of things for a League One club. I think the record was something like 2 or 3 million, and they've just blown it out of the water easily. And it's one of those for me where you can't fault Birmingham for doing what they're doing, but I would laugh if they ended up not getting promoted. Now, if we do look down the rest of the league, you've got Lincoln City on 9 points, Huddersfield in 5th, also on 9 points, Charlton also on 9 points, and you look at Charlton and they're also a very percentage-based team. 4 goals, 2 conceded, but they've picked up 3 wins, which is absolutely massive. You've then got Barnsley, Reading and Bristol Rovers all on 7 points. You've then got Exeter City, Peterborough United and Crawley all on 6 points. You've then got Northampton Town and Mansfield on 5. Wycombe Wanderers, Stevenage, Rotherham and Bolton all on 4. You've then got Burton, Shrewsbury, Wigan on 3, Blackpool on 2, Cambridge on 1, and the only team not to score a point so far is Richie Wellens' Leyton Orient. Now, if we do look, just a quick brief discussion here about like the likes of Leyton Orient and Blackpool were really good sides in this division last year, and they're well out of position here. They could quite easily spin this around. Burton Albion and Bolton, I think, are in the wrong place, as well as Rotherham. I think they'll be much higher up come the end of the season. I think Mansfield Town are about where they should be. Crawley, I do think they may slump. They've lost 2 in a row. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Obviously, Peterborough United, they'll rise up the division. They'll go on a run at some point. Reading, I think, are in a really good place. And considering they weren't able to make much transfer business and they're still being sort of haggled along in terms of the takeover, I think they're in a really good position. I do think they have a really good manager, and they have a fairly decent squad of players, like, in all complete honesty. And last season, obviously, they had the points deductions. They're not having to worry about that at the moment this season. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep it that way across the course. Obviously, Barnsley are sitting in 7th on 7 points, which is actually quite good, considering I got the impression, looking at results and performances, that maybe they weren't quite in that area yet. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out come the end of the season. Now, we will obviously come back and take a look at this heading into the next set of fixtures, but that's it for now. Now, we've been through all the League One fixtures, we've been through the League One table, and if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in my next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.